curious about Songbird. Could you tell us more about this network? Is it an app chain?
So Songbird is built to be essentially the canary net for Flare. So it is a layer one EVM-based chain with Flare's data protocols built into it. The reason for Songbird's existence is that interoperability is hard. You're dealing with multiple systems across different zones of sovereignty, meaning that each chain has its own type of consensus protocol. Building interoperability is a bit like building a Swiss watch, right? You've got to have these cogs that make the next click based on something from somewhere else, another cog. So to give you, an example, you want to have interoperability between Cosmos and Ethereum. You've got to wait for Ethereum to come to consensus. You've got to wait for that cog to click along. You've got to be certain that that is correct and you're not on a fork. So you've got many, many layers. Interoperability is a very much more complex thing than building a dApp on a chain. And so Flare brings you this data, but we really want developers who build interoperability applications to put them on Songbird first, test them, because Songbird's essentially Flare, but with a health warning. And many developers who have been working on Songbird have found bugs in their code, and that's the use case for it. Also, separately, it is the first stage of governance in Flare. So for community governance proposals, those must be voted on Songbird first. So essentially, what we didn't want to have with Flare was to have an endless number of governance proposals that no one cares about. On Songbird, once Flare is out of beta, we'll have governance rounds once a quarter. People will stake to each governance question, and the governance question that accumulates the most stake is then passed up to Flare to be ratified. So it's got this bicameral governance system. Songbird, of course, then has its own governance where it can change its raison d'etre, so it can completely divorce itself from Flare if it wants to and become its own L1, or it can change its parameters in certain ways or whatever. That's one role of Songbird. But then lastly, with interoperability between Songbird and Flare, it can become an overflow compute network.
How can developers start building on Flare?
So the nice thing is it's EVM based. There are more performant virtual machines, as we all know, but everyone knows EVM, and achieving a network of scale is as important as having a good virtual machine. So, EVM is where we are for now. That can be switched out at a later date if the community says that's desirable. Let's say some alternative VM comes along and it's incredibly popular. So it's EVM based, so that makes it easy. Then, of course, just going to our website, there's docs and tutorials. It's flare.network, and you can follow the links.
So if you have, let's say, 10 seconds to pitch to them to start building on Flare network, how would you pitch it to them?
I'd pitch it very simply. Don't just build an application that serves our network. Build an application that can serve all networks through Flare. To give you an example, we did a demo the other day on Songbird, where you can buy an NFT on Songbird. So the token exists on the Songbird network. You can buy that NFT with multiple currencies. And in this demo, it was purchased with Doge and it was purchased with XRP. But it could also be purchased with Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, any Cosmos coin, anything that the state connector can attest to. And the flow was a transaction was made on, say, the Dogecoin network. That transaction was attested to Flare. That released an NFT on Flare. So this ability to do this means that NFTs can be priced in multiple currencies simultaneously through the FTSO. So that means a marketplace is no longer restricted to one currency, but it also means that an artist can issue NFTs that have the maximum possible reach. So they don't only need to pitch the Ethereum community, they can also pitch all other communities at the same time. So instead of being a niche, tiny gallery on a back street, they can be, right on the main street.
So a transaction was sent on the Doge network, which probably transferred that NFT to an address, right?
No, let me. The exact flow was you come onto Songbird, you reserve the NFT with a small payment. Let's
Uh-huh.
say that small payment in the secondary market, let's say that small payment is the commission, essentially the ongoing trailing commission, the royalty. So that small payment can go to the artist. So that goes into a smart contract. It can go to the artist who originally issued the NFT. Cool. So we've reserved our NFT. Now we go pay the seller. Might be the artist if it's a primary mint, or it might be the owner if it's a secondary sale.
Mm,
Now I go pay the seller on whatever network they have specified, or they may have multiple addresses. So if I'm a seller, I might have an address on 20 chains
mhm,
in order to get paid. And so I get paid on say the Doge network. So now
mhm.
I've paid the seller on the Doge network, and the state connector is used to attest that payment to Flare to trigger the release of the artwork.
I see. And on the side of the primary network, is there like a transfer of the asset there?
On a network, no, it's the asset exists on Flare or on Songbird. It doesn't exist on the network where the NFT was purchased. The reason being is that many networks don't have NFTs. Ultimately, with
Got it.
a relay network, it is possible to 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 create the transfer on any network.
Got it. Got it. I see. That's really cool stuff. And this feature will presumably be like live soon, right?
Well, that feature is available today on Songbird. It's really up
Amazing.
to marketplaces to integrate it.